Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2022. I'm your host, George Kerth, joined by Cody Roadcap and Tyler Snyder. Guys, the fantasy season, the regular season is over, but the playoffs are coming. How you guys feeling?
I'm not
Defeated. It was a rough Sunday night.
I'll take my bye week and run, I guess.
I'll take my weekend run. I'm the only one in the playoffs. Yeah,
Can't
rub
wait
it
for
in,
the
George.
first episode after the Eagles lose. That's gonna be a fun episode now.
Oh, I know. I just totally jinxed myself right there, but I'll take what I can get. On today's show, we're going to take a look back at the fantasy season, though. We're going to hit some NFL news and notes first, and then we are going to break down the season with our fantasy end of season awards. Make sure you find us on all our social media channels at the Couch GMs, and you can join our Discord chat to talk to us at any time. The link is in the description of the video or podcast you're watching or listening to. All right, guys, let's just jump right in NFL news. NFL news will start off with an update on Damar Hamlin, who we got great news on Monday. He was released from the hospital in Cincinnati and returned back home to Buffalo. And I actually just want to share one of the fun stories I heard was he set off a bunch of alarms to his nurses in the hospital on Sunday after that opening kickoff return for a touchdown by the Bills. So I think that was just already news to hear that he was doing so much better. And now it's good to see that he has finally been released from the hospital.
Yeah,
It's a miracle.
for sure. It's worth noting that he's being transferred, so he's still going to be in a Buffalo hospital getting monitored. But this is a huge step to be able to. I believe this means he'll be out of ICU. I don't want to 100% confirm that, so that's good. He's still making progress. He's going to be monitoring, jumping up and down, cheering on his boys. And honestly, I hope to see him back on the sidelines. I don't think we'll see him playing this year, but I'd love to get Damar out there for a potential matchup, even if it is a 2-3 matchup against the Bengals in a couple weeks. But 1 week ago, Tyler and I recording this podcast. George a little bit under the weather, and an hour after we were done, we had to have the conversation to even post this podcast because we watched a guy almost pass away on the football field, and it really struck a chord. It brought everybody together. Like, they're talking about this on the Today Show, like every morning talk show, like brought everybody together. And we don't need more of what happened to Damar Hamlin, but we need more of that bringing everybody together. So congrats to Damar for pulling through. He definitely is a fighter. And thanks again to the medical staff, the training staff of the UC Cincinnati for taking care of Damar Hamlin.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing. I've never seen unity quite like that before. But on a little bit of a less serious note, one thing that the Damar Hamlin situation did bring out was a change to the fantasy playoffs. And as we said 1,000 times, the fantasy was not important. But we did have to go through week 18. There was some fantasy championships up in the air. So, this guys, I just wondered, how did week 18 matchups go for you guys with the decisions that were made?
All my week 18 matchups didn't happen. They just took the final scores from week 17, which was my preferred way to do it. So I still finished in week 17.
Yeah, all the matchups that I was involved in all were basically decided before that Monday night game. So they kind of did take our advice and just kind of go with how it was projected to go out. But I do know that there was a couple, like our league of record had a championship game that went to a DFS showdown. I know there was another league that my girlfriend was in that did as well. So it was interesting to see all the different scenarios that went down in week 18 when it came to, every situation was different.
Shout out to, I forget the name on TikTok, so I apologize, but shout out to the most Couch GM way I saw it championship figured out was they just ran a Madden sim of the Bengals Chiefs game and they took the points. Like, I was like, you know what? That's hilarious. That's what they end up doing. Like, that is like the most Couch GM way to do a fantasy championship.
Now,
so I'm glad some leagues had some fun.
Both teams, or is it literally just a computer sim?
It was literally just leave the controller in the middle setting, press AAA, and they're just sitting there watching the computer sim a game. Like, it was a great TikTok, and congrats to I apologize. I should have your name just so people could look it up, but that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I will say a close friend of mine did lose a fantasy championship because the commissioner decided to just take the points as is and call it a day. He lost by 1 point, having Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. The other guy was done, and he lost by 1 point. Commissioner said, "Nope, that's it. That's done. That's how we're finishing it." Uh, and that entire league has now broken up because of it, because of the civil war that has gone back and forth. So hopefully more stuff like that has not happened out there. I will say that in a league, uh, in one league that I run, we did do, the DFS lineup. In another league I run, I let my opponent choose because I was in the championship, and they chose week 18 points. Poor decision. I won. So, guys, I am a fantasy champion this year.
I'm a
Applause.
podium.
Congrats.
I'm
You
giving
were
you
in the
applause.
most
I just
leagues, so
threw
I
my
feel
hands
like you
up.
had the
Yeah.
most chance to win.
Oh, don't be bringing that. Don't be bringing that. Come on now.
You
He
had
still
the
has a
most
better
shots at the
percentage than you,
yeah
though.
I
yeah
made the playoffs in more leagues than you did, percentage wise.
Yes, he did.
yeah
And as you said, if
probably
you would listen to your own start sit advice that you posted on the website instead of listening to others, you would have done a little better. But
yeah. I don't even remember how many playoffs I was in, to be honest with you.
it's been a
I'm
long grind since the
yeah.
fantasy playoffs
I'm
started, it
looking
feels
forward to
like.
the off season. I'm not gonna
No,
lie.
we're looking forward to the NFL playoffs because we still got playoff challenge coming up, which I can even throw right into here at the top, even though it's not this part of the rundown yet. We are running an NFL playoff challenge group, so make sure you guys go and join that. We're going to be drafting our Couch GMs team on our Friday show, so make sure you come back for that as well and see if you can beat us in our individual teams. So, little teaser there.
Yeah, guys, if you're wondering what the playoff challenge is, since we're just throwing it out there and not giving any explanation, the playoff challenge is something run on NFL.com. And the way that it works is each week you get to pick a team. Week one of the playoffs, you will pick any players that are in the playoffs at all. That includes people that are on bye as well. If the team that the player is on wins, then they get double points in week two. If they win again, they get triple points in week three, quadruple points for the Super Bowl. So you can pick a player that doesn't play in week one and be automatically guaranteed they have double points in week two. That is a strategy. You got to be careful picking people on teams you don't think are going to win a game. Um, just for example, we don't think the Jags will probably win or go too far. So you might not want Travis Etienne because he'll probably be out after week one. You don't get those multipliers. So that's how it works. And then whoever finishes the most points at the end of the playoff challenge wins.
Yeah, and one last thing, if you join ours, which we hope you do, please don't make it like Tina's totally cool picks. Like, we don't know who Tina is. So make sure you use either your full name or your Instagram handle or your Twitter handle so we can connect with you, because as of now the plan is to, if you can beat the Couch GMs, and that is a big if,
Yeah,
to
okay.
yeah, no. Hey, come on.
You're
I'm trying
not
to get
beating us. Let's go.
we're going to invite you on the show, talk a little smack, talk about what your decisions were. And depending on how many people we get to sign up, so share it with your friends, get more people involved, we might add some more prizes in there. So again, that's the NFL Fantasy Playoff Challenge.
I think that's a good wrap for that one. We have some coaching news to hit really quick here. So this Monday in the NFL is known as Black Monday. It's normally where you see the most coach firings. There were 3 of them on this Monday. The Panthers fired head coach Matt. Nope, this is before. I am reading it backwards. There were 2 on Monday. My bad. The Texans fired Lovie Smith, and the Cardinals fired Cliff Kingsbury, as well as their GM stepping down. They add on to the 3 that happened before this week, which is the Panthers firing Matt Rule, the Colts firing Frank Reich, and the Broncos from the other week firing Nathaniel Hackett. So we have 5 head coach openings as of now in the NFL. I'm going to leave it at those 5 for my question to you guys. Which is the most enticing opening? Which one do you think that coaches would want to go to the most?
Okay.
Originally I would say Broncos. Originally, because I do think they have the best roster. I just don't think it was a well-coached team. I think after the Nathaniel Hackett firing, the Broncos did step up. But I was listening to an analyst somewhere that was talking about how Sean Payton is potentially being looked at for the Broncos. And they said, why would he want to go there? like, yeah, they got a good roster, but you're talking about a team that is locked into their quarterback after he looked really bad this year. Long term, like, you have no way of getting out of that contract unless you are cutting half your roster because of the cap penalties you're going to take. And they have no first round pick. They would have a really early draft pick this year if they didn't make the trade, but instead the Seahawks have that draft pick. So you're talking about a team with a bad quarterback situation, no first round pick, not a great situation. Originally, that's where I would pick. So now I would say either the Colts or the Cardinals. I would probably go with the Colts, though. I think that they have a great defense. They have the running back. I feel like, one more wide receiver and finally locking in that quarterback you need. You got a solid team in a really garbage division. I think that is probably the best landing spot for me right now.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are right up there with the Broncos. Like, you're locked into Kyler Murray. So, like, unless you get a guy that's going to come in and buy in with Kyler Murray, um, and it is reported that he's going to have a say in the next head coach, which is surprising because not all quarterbacks get that. But at the same time, you need a guy that he can gel with to really take the Cardinals the next step. The Colts are the most actually. I think the Texans, if you took out all their off the field drama, would be the most enticing with all the draft picks they're getting back from Travis or from the Deshaun Watson trade. But they fired their coach after 1 year, 3 straight years. And what coach wants to go there? Like, like I know that this one is kind of like, all right, we're going to go for a young guy, build him with this young team. But like, you have Lovie Smith gone, David Colley was gone, and I don't even remember the coach. And that's no offense to that guy, but I don't remember the coach before. Was that Bill O'Brien? No, that wasn't. Who was Bill O'Brien and David Colley? Good luck figuring that one out off the top of your head.
Yeah.
But I think the Colts are really interesting, and I do love that Lovie Smith went for 2 and was like, "Look, this team wants to win." And I hate that he was after the game and he said, "I absolutely think I'm going to be back next year." And like 4 hours later, he was let go. And I think the Texans are going to get what they deserve because I think the Colts are going to trade with the Bears and jump them for the number 1 pick. So Lovie Smith would have essentially cost them the number 1 pick. They fired him, and the Colts will jump them for a quarterback, and that'll be a fun division rival. And I agree with Tyler. I think the Colts have the most intriguing option as long as they commit to a young quarterback and aren't in the let's try to get Tom Brady, let's try to get Aaron Rodgers, let's see what we can salvage from Derek Carr, let's bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, just don't get a stopgap. Go young. Let a young guy come in, build that team. They have some young pieces. Colts are the most interesting one. I agree.
All right, just to clear it up before I wrap the Texans up here, it was Bill O'Brien before David Culley, so it's just 3 straight years of firing a head coach, not
Gotcha.
after 1 season. I wasn't sure either, but that explains it. Anyway, yeah, for everything you said about the Texans, I agree. They still have a lot of growing to do, and they have to deal with the Brandon Cooks situation and all that. If Brandon Cooks was locked in, that's a cornerstone piece. I think that would help bring a coach in, but now you don't know if he's going to be there past this offseason. I like the Cardinals situation if you're somebody who can run an offense that Kyler Murray fits, because then you're getting a veteran quarterback that can kind of give you a boost right off the bat. But there's going to be a lot of head coaches that don't fit that scheme or don't believe in that kind of quarterback that are going to struggle to fit into that situation. So I'm going to go with you guys as well. It's got to be the Colts because you can bring in your guy. You already have a solid base around him, and it'll fit the widest range of coaches to go in there and say, I want this guy in the draft, and you go with it.
All right. And then also just some other head news. Sean McVay is going to take some time to see if he wants to return or take a break. I guess to technically retire. But he said he doesn't think he's done coaching. He just wants to know if he's kind of burnt out because he started so young. It's been a lot for him. And then Bill Belichick is expected to return for his 24th season with the Patriots. And let's see if he gets some coordinators this time with Matt Patricia putting up another, pretty poor play calling performance on a game that they needed to win to get in.
So I want to go back to the Sean McVay thing because I've seen some negative stuff flying around. A lot of people are saying McVay wants to take a break because he doesn't want to go through the Rams rebuild that is completely inevitable. Do you think that it's just like he doesn't want to do it and tarnish his reputation? Do you think he is burnt out and there's nothing to it. Where are you guys at?
I mean, you got to remember there was talks of Sean McVay retiring last year as well. Like, this isn't the first we're hearing of this. A lot of people are only thinking of this year. It's easy to forget that he said it last year too, because he ended up staying. But they weren't going through a rebuild this year. At least they didn't think they were. They still had Cooper Kupp. They still had Matt Stafford. They still had that awesome defense. Like, they still thought they were going to win this year. And yet McVay was talking about stepping down last year before they even won the Super Bowl. So I think it's been kind of on his mind for a while. I think it is more of a burnout thing than it is a doesn't want to go through a rebuild thing. But the fact that this is 2 seasons in a row of him talking like, I might leave, maybe not. Like, he's becoming the Brett Favre of head coaches. I either stick with your guns, say you're going to play and keep going, or take the break you need. Stop giving it the runaround, because the players, the fans, the organization as a whole deserves better than that.
The only thing I'll say to that though is I'm okay with Sean McVay taking the time he needs, because there's not a better option out there than Sean McVay. Like, I think and I don't think he's like, I think if he commits, he 100% commits. Like, I don't think he's a guy that's gonna, like, have 1 foot in, 1 foot out the whole season. If he's like, I'm back, he's all in again. And I think it's just realizing, and remember, he did just get married last off season. So like, that was a big factor into it last year, like taking some time to be the family. Obviously he's going to still be around football, doing some TV if he so chooses. So I actually think it's good. Like, I think sometimes we forget that these coaches put in ungodly hours, and sometimes like burnout's a real thing, and take the time you need to figure out what is best. And I trust that Sean McVay will make the best decision. And if he does decide to stay, that it's not, well, I'll retire. And he might think of it again next year, but he's 100% committed for the 2023 season.
Yeah, I think that like, I get what you're saying. I totally do. I do think he is the best option there. So you kind of want to give him the time because you hope that he returns. But you also got to think there's not a ton of like every year we kind of have like, this guy should be a head coach next year. This guy could be a head coach next year. I don't feel like we have as many of those rumors out this year, and we have a lot of head coaching options. So our openings. So the fact that he is taking the time, like, what if they miss out on someone good? Like, you're kind of screwing over your organization by saying like, yeah, I need some time to think, wait until everybody else has their head coach signed, and then like, okay, yeah, I decided I'm going to leave. And then next thing you know, the top candidates are gone and you're stuck with whatever's left. And that's kind of an unfair thing to do to the Rams organization. At least that's how I feel about it. I feel like if you're burnt out, take your time you need, but do it. Like, stop thinking about it. Stop putting it off. If you were thinking about doing this last year, you're thinking about doing it again this year. Obviously, you need it. Just do it. Like, I don't see what's holding him back. But then again, it's kind of hard for me to put myself in his shoes because none of us have ever been in his shoes.
Right. And I disagree with your take on, I think there's a lot of good candidates this year, and there's going to be a lot of guys that don't get hired. Like, they can sign Eric Bieniemy at the very end, because we know he's not going to get another job for some
Which
dumb
is
reason.
just insane still. Yes.
Like,
Should
he'll
have been
be
head
he'll be
coach
there.
4 years ago.
Right. Like, so there'll be options. And I mean, same thing, like, nobody thought the Eagles wanted Nick Sirianni.
Yeah. There's going to be
He was
one
the-
of those. At least.
Yeah. So there's always
And
there's
only
always
5 openings as of now too, which I feel like is low. I think we're normally at 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think we're kind of low too. Only 2 people fired on Black Monday or during the season, I think, is pretty wild. But that's enough head coaches, and we can talk all off season about what happens and projecting teams. Real quick, just some injury updates for the fantasy matchups this coming week. The Chargers, who are set to face the Jaguars. Mike Williams got injured when the Chargers decided to play their starters despite not being able to change their seating at all. Good news is the MRI came back clean. Day to day with the contusion. And then Jalen Hurts. Fancy word for bruise. Jalen Hurts dealing with soreness, which is expected after not playing for a couple weeks and really not even throwing until like 3 days before the game. So soreness, but should be good to go after the bye. And the Eagles need them because this team was still struggling. They almost allowed a comeback with Davis Webb and Kenny Galladay, which you probably forgot about. And
Kenny
then with
Galladay can catch passes. Who knew?
hey, he caught his first touchdown as a Giant, which was great to see. And then
2
it is
seasons in.
worth noting that we mentioned it on last week's episode. There is some funky stuff with the playoffs. If it were to be a Bills-Chiefs game, it would be played at a neutral field, and that's for the AFC Championship. I don't understand how this rule doesn't apply to if it's Bills-Bengals. I don't understand the coin flip. Shout out to Joe Mixon. That was an incredible celebration. The NFL is doing some wonky things, and that is a great case of one of them.
I would say I disagree with how this is handled. I think the Bills had the shot at the number 1 seed if they would have beaten the Bengals. Since that game was a no contest, you basically handed the number 1 seed over to the Chiefs. I feel like because the Chiefs got gifted a number 1 seed, that the Bills no longer had a chance to win. If it came down to AFC Championship, Bills versus Chiefs, it should be played in Buffalo. Like, the Chiefs got the bonus of having a first round bye. The Chiefs should have the bonus of getting home field advantage. But that's just my personal opinion. It is what it is. My opinion means nothing.
Well,
No,
technically,
I think that's a
though,
valid point.
the Chiefs winning out the way they did, it wouldn't have even mattered what the result of Bills-Bengals was, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's not
Chiefs
true.
would've
If
still
the
gotten
Bills
first.
won both, they controlled
So
their
the
own
Bills
destiny.
would have. Okay, the Bills controlled it. Now, so I'm mixing that up. My bad.
Yeah.
When it comes to not throwing Cincinnati into there, it's because Cincinnati didn't control their own destiny, and the Chiefs won out. The Bills would have had the tiebreaker on Cincinnati. Like, so it would, if it would have been Chiefs-Bengals with the way it fell, it wouldn't have mattered if the Bengals beat the Bills. The Chiefs would have still been the 1 seed. That's why they're not involved in the neutral field situation.
Yeah, the Bills and the Chiefs both, or the Bills and the Bengals both beat the Chiefs this year, but the Bengals had one extra loss. They needed Kansas City to lose to get the 1
Yep.
seed. But if they would have beat the Bengals, or if the Bengals would have beat the Bills in that game, and they would be the 2 seed, and the divisional round, assuming they both win, would be in Cincinnati. But because it somehow went to the game was a no contest, that's why I don't understand the reasoning to putting that game, the championship, at a neutral field, but not the divisional round. Why is
So
that not a coin flip?
Bengals is your question. I got you, and that is a
Yeah.
great point.
Yeah, I don't understand the rule. Like, why are we like somewhat catering to this? Like, again, I understand it's an unprecedented situation, but like, if no contest means the game stand by win percentage, and this is how it fell, then the Chiefs get it. It shouldn't be a neutral field for just that game. But then there's other games that are question mark. Just like I didn't understand would have been a coin flip if the Ravens won. Like, too much.
The Ravens would have had a shot to win the division was the reason. I don't know. It is all like hypothetical. You don't know.
Yeah, and because we don't know, I mean, we can only speculate as much as we want and give our opinions. But, if you have an opinion on the situation, what you think should have been done, shouldn't have been done, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, guys, real quick before we jump into our last segment of the day, just rapid fire so we have it as proof. What's your projected Super Bowl matchup right now, heading into the playoffs?
I'll answer on the next episode, because I haven't really looked at the brackets.
Yeah, that's why. Off the top of your head, let's go. Boom. Who do you got? AFC, NFC, pick one.
All right. I have Chiefs versus 49ers. Do I announce the winner too? Is that what you're trying to tell me to do?
Sure. Why not?
All right, Chiefs.
I'm just winging it. Chiefs. All right.
I have no idea. I literally said, I'll tell you next episode. It's called a tease.
Nah, teases suck. Nobody wants a tease. We want instant gratification.
Look, this is the end of a movie that there's going to be a part 2.
How about you give an answer off the top of your head now, but if you want to change it for next week, you can.
Fine. I'll do that. I will say Bills beat the 49ers.
Yeah, I like the Bills a lot. My realistic one is 49ers beat the Bills Super Bowl. I think the 49ers are arguably the best team in all of the playoffs. That's, up for debate, but especially with Brock Purdy at quarterback. But that one's up for debate. But just for the sake of fun, keep these things different. I'm going to go with Bengals beat the Cowboys for the Super Bowl.
All right. So now that you asked a rapid fire question, I'm going to ask just you a rapid fire question, and I'll answer it too. Since the Titans and the Packers were eliminated in their playing game in terrible fashion, who is your playoff team that you're rooting for this year?
Playoff team that I'm rooting for? Probably the 49ers. I really like that 49ers team. I mean, Brandon Ayuk, you got Brock Purdy's kind of fun to watch. You got Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle's amazing. That defense is stacked. They're such a fun team to root for. In the AFC, I want the Bills to win one just because they have never won one. My biggest thing is if my team's out, I want to see a team that's never won it before win, which is kind of funny that I mentioned the 49ers, but they're just a fun team. But I would love to see a new team that's never won it before. The other team that I'm rooting for, though, is Dolphins. I really like the Dolphins this year. I think they're another fun team. I think they have zero shot. They will be eliminated first round, but I think they're fun.
I'm joining the Houday bandwagon for January.
I like the Bengals as well. They're definitely up there in my tops. I actually have a lot of teams I like in the playoffs this year, which usually it's like, I want everyone to lose is kind of what I want.
The AFC side especially, I feel like I can look at the field and say 4 or 5 teams. I'm like, I like them a lot. I wouldn't mind any of those 5 winning, and that's very unusual.
The really mean side of me just wants hashtag We Dem Boys to win it all.
Let's just say there's 2 teams on the NFC side where they better not get that far, and they play each other this week, so I guess you can figure out who that is. Yeah, we're gonna move on. Let's hit some end of season fantasy awards. All right, guys. So we did this at the mid-season mark. We're going to be hitting some of the same exact awards here for end of season. We had some biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, waiver wire ad of the year, fantasy playoff hero, and our fantasy MVP for the year. I could go through this if I wanted to, but I feel like this is the job best suited for Tyler, Mr. Game Show host over here. So why don't you start announcing some of our candidates for biggest surprise?
All right, so our biggest fantasy surprise of the year, our nominees include Josh Jacobs, running back 3, drafted 48th overall. Devontae Smith, wide receiver 9 on the year, drafted 91st overall. Christian Kirk, wide receiver 13, drafted 98th overall. Christian McCaffrey, he stayed healthy. That's crazy. No one expected that one. That's the biggest shock of the year. I don't care what you say. Jamal Williams, running back 15, overall 145. And Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 13, but drafted 108. So, boys, that is our nominees. Do you want to give a little debate, little talk? Are we just announcing the awards? What are we doing here?
All right, I'll say a little thing about the nominees. One, I think you mentioned stay healthy for Christian McCaffrey, but like how much that trade changed his outlook also was such a huge, because we were talking about Christian McCaffrey as yet again another bust. This time, albeit he was staying healthy, but he just wasn't the guy we were hoping for. He wasn't the healthy Christian McCaffrey. And he went to San Fran, and he's like, guys, I'm still CMC. Don't worry. And then the other guy I want to mention is Devonta Smith. How he got to wide receiver 9 kind of blows my mind because I feel like his consistency rating is fairly low. He had some big games, and then he had some no-shows. Congrats to him to getting receiver 9.
Yeah, I'll give a little shout out to Jamal Williams. I mean, nobody expected him to do anything this year. He was a backup running back. We thought DeAndre Swift was finally going to take that step forward. Now, Swift did look good to start, got hurt, and then just never came back fully. Jamal Williams was a solid running back in there in the middle when DeAndre Swift was injured, but Williams was putting up points all year long. I mean, the dude put up so many touchdowns. He broke Barry Sanders' Lions touchdown record, which is not something I ever thought would happen. Shout out to the boy. That is absolutely awesome. And the guy that I threw on this list is Tyler Lockett. I mean, not only did nobody think he would do anything in the beginning of the year, albeit the Seahawks nobody thought would do anything this year. Did you guys hear Geno Smith had broke the Seahawks passing yards franchise record? He broke all of Russell Wilson's passing yards records. Can you believe that?
People were
Yes,
probably saying he played like Russell Smith at times this year. So
I can't. It's hard to believe because of what we did. But I will say when you see records being broken, like honestly, congrats to Jamal doing that. Congrats to Geno Smith doing it. That this is the 17th game.
he's gonna
Like
say it. Yep.
the 17th game. Like I'll give them credit, but Russell Wilson never played a full 17 games. So
That's true, but at the same time, if you came into the season said, "Do you think Geno Smith can do in 17 what Russell Wilson did in 16?" I would have said, "No, no shot. No, I think it would take Geno Smith 20 games to do what Russell Wilson's done
I think that's
because
a
he's
valid point.
terrible." Like, so I think he's super impressive. But anyway, Tyler Lockett got really off track. So Tyler Lockett, not only did we not think he would do anything in the beginning of the year, but all year long, not only you guys, but pretty much every fantasy football outlet out there said, yeah, but he's going to slow down. Yeah, but it's not reliable. Yeah, but something's going to happen. Yeah, but nothing. The dude was consistent and solid all year long outside of injuries. Finished as wide receiver 13, had double-digit points pretty much every single week. An honest stud. So I just want to give a shout out to him.
I was definitely very critical of Tyler Lockett, and I still feel like it's not real when I see Tyler Lockett was wide receiver 13, and they were down through a full season, and he did the entire year. But I am going to give Tyler just a bit of credit before we announce our winner. And I had to talk about Josh Jacobs, who we were all down on. Tyler was the one person who was like, I'll take Josh Jacobs. You want to slide this far? And he went to bat for him multiple times in the preseason. And look at that. He went back to his first round form, running back 3. I didn't see it coming. And that Raiders team around him also was awful. And if you would have told me how bad the Raiders are going to be and he would still be running back 3, I'd be impressed. And here we are. He did it.
Congrats to
nobody
leading
thought
the
he
league
would
in
do it.
rushing.
And
Yeah.
led league in rushing. Yep.
Derrick Henry couldn't put up 200 yards in the final game again. It didn't happen. No, honestly, nobody thought he would do it. 1, because they didn't think he was good enough, and 2, because they drafted a rookie running back behind him that everybody thought would take over the job, and it just never happened. Plus, the Raiders in the beginning of the season were kind of like, we kind of want to get rid of Josh Jacobs. I mean, he played in the Hall of Fame game. I mean, you don't play starters in the Hall of Fame game. You just don't. So we all
They honestly
thought he
still
would be
might.
benched, but
They still might get rid of Josh Jacobs too. There's no guarantees going back to Vegas.
Yeah, he is a free agent. And just to give you a record, I had him as RB25 when we did our rankings to start the season.
Wow. Yeah.
You had him at 23, so you weren't too far off.
No,
Snyder, you had him
I'm
at
not
21.
shocked.
So he was still the highest, but he still superseded all our expectations. But I think we've talked about everybody but the winner. So if you can remember who it is, but you want to give a shout out and reveal the winner as he looks for a
Yes.
prop.
Yes, I gotta have a prop because I don't. Nothing's written on it, but I mean, it feels like an award show. So
Way to just ruin it before you even showed the fake
I mean, I'll
envelope.
show the empty card if you want, but all right. And the winner of fantasy biggest surprise of 2022 is
Don't pull a Steve Harvey.
Devontae. Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to say Devontae Smith, guys. I didn't mean to say it.
It's right
I'm
here on
sorry.
the card.
On the card, you can see it right here. It says Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has won the award, biggest surprise of 2022.
He was one of those wide receiver ones in the preseason that were like, oh yeah, he has a chance to break out. He got all that money, but all he did was inflate the wide receiver market because he's not worth that big contract, and he's still the Jaguars. They were bad last year. He went out and proved it as well as the rest of his team.
I think, it's funny with the Jags being in the Titans division. You'd think I would follow the Jags a little more, but I think Cody and I weren't really following the Jags at all. But I remember an episode in mid-season that we were doing that I asked the question, I was like, do you think we play Christian Kirk? Do you think he's a potential flex play? And I think George was the one that was like, dude, Christian Kirk is like wide receiver 3 on the season right now. Like, yeah, you play Christian Kirk. He's great every week. I was like, I'm sorry, what? It was so stunning. Like, I just didn't follow him. Like, even when he was doing good, nobody cared. And nobody cared all season long. You snagged Christian Kirk. Dude, you got a hell of a deal out of it. So Fantasy, biggest surprise, Christian Kirk, congratulations. Now to bring the notes down a little bit. It is time for our biggest disappointment of the year. Feel free to boo, cry, throw some things. I made a TikTok about one of these guys being such a disappointment. So it's a tough list. But so our nominees for biggest disappointment of the year are Deebo Samuel, finished wide receiver 34. Jonathan Taylor finished running back 30. DeAndre Swift finished running back 24. Alvin Kamara did finish running back 17, but that's thanks to a strong finish. Disappointment all year long. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron, finished quarterback 15. And Kyle Pitts, the man we really want to love, but he keeps doing it to us. He broke 10 twice. That's it before his week 11 injury. So, a lot of disappointing guys on here. Who do you got? Who's your disappointments?
Man, there were plenty of times where like those 2 10-point games from Kyle Pitts made me look so dumb, because every time I thought I had the leverage behind me to be like, oh yeah, Kyle Pitts is the biggest bust ever, you don't have to play him, everyone else at the tight end position stunk and he broke 10, and it's like, yeah, here we go. So I think like he was the thorn in my side before his injury, but he was just awful, and the draft stock you put into him at the position to get nothing was just awful.
Yeah, I agree. It was awful, but like you mentioned, the whole tight end position was bad. So, like, you could argue Darren Waller could be on this list, Mark Andrews could be on this list for the same exact reasons. They had a little bit better seasons, but it was just a bad season for tight ends. Jonathan Taylor, number 1 overall pick, super big disappointment, only played in 11 games. How much does that take a factor of it too? And then since I'm the Packers fan, of course, I'm going to have to defend Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to talk a lot of Aaron Rodgers with Rodgers Watch coming up in the coming weeks. But QB15 was, maybe like 2 or 3 spots about where he was being drafted. Like, he was a guy that was borderline not even draftable this year because of the loss of Devontae Adams. You were just so uncertain. So it is a disappointment because he was the back-to-back MVP and didn't have a game over 300 passing yards, which is kind of crazy in today's NFL. But I think there are some better candidates out there. But Tyler, unless you have something to say,
I will say just a couple honorable mentions here. First would be quarterback Tom Brady. I mean, I don't think any of us expected Tom Brady to be this bad this year. A downfall coming, sure, but he still had all of his healthy receivers and still struggled. It was bad.
Hope you played him in week 17 though.
Still finished as QB12, so technically a top.
Of course,
QB1.
QB12 finished 12. Yeah.
Some other honorable mentions, real quick here. We do have Javonte Williams. It was injury related, but still first round pick that did not play. That's tough. Najee Harris saved himself a little bit with a strong second half. However, he was still running back 15, even with the strong second half. He was ADP of 7. So that's definitely a big hit. But guys, that is it for my honorable mentions. And the winner of biggest disappointment of 2023 is it's Jonathan Taylor, guys. It's obvious.
I get Cody's argument with the whole he only played 11 games, but like, you took him first overall. He was the closest to the unanimous first overall that we've seen in fantasy in years, I think. And just the fact that he didn't play games, he did struggle for a big stretch in the middle of the year when he was playing still. Running back 30, that crippled so many teams.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult. Jonathan Taylor, it was just disappointing from the start. He gave you maybe 2 games that you were like, hey, finally, it's a Jonathan Taylor game. Maybe he's back. And then he went right back to disappointing. But let's go ahead and move on to some more positive notes. This is definitely a fun one. This is our waiver wire ad of the year. And the nominees are Jamal Williams, running back 15. Jeff Wilson, running back 29. Evan Engram, tight end 5. Justin Fields, quarterback 5. And Christian Watson, wide receiver 44, but that 4-week stretch of touchdowns, though.
I just feel like it's, I don't know how to put this. not sound like a complete jerk. But it feels so weird to have Jeff Wilson and Jamal Williams on this list. Like, I feel like they're completely like different. Like, Williams was a guy, all the touchdowns. My only thing to him was you had to rely on the touchdowns. I don't have the stats in front of me, but like I don't even know if he had a 100-yard rushing game all season. Which if he didn't, that is incredible to finish QB1 or running back 15. And if he did, I mean, it was probably only one. And I can see George looking it up. So while George looks up the Jamal Williams, I will talk about Christian Watson. He had two. He's flashed me two.
And one of them was in week 17. So,
as a potential fantasy championship matchup. And I do love that we gave a shout out, mainly because I said so, to Christian Watson. Dealt with a lot of injuries. Also, part of the reason he missed a 4-week stretch at one point, and then bounced back with scoring 8 touchdowns in weeks, right from week 10 to week 13, and then he missed a game in week 14. Or no, that was their bye. Not the best in the playoffs, which sucked, but he helped get you there. It helped you turn around your team. So shout out to him. But obviously 4 weeks doesn't make the best ad out of anybody in fantasy.
He's out here already counting out Christian Watson. We didn't even announce a winner. Jeff Wilson was interesting because he was on our mid-season waiver wire ads ballot as a member of the 49ers, got traded to the Dolphins. He went from, a backup to really, really good to getting traded, and he was like counted out. And then he was really, really, really good for like 3 weeks, and then he kind of disappeared again. So like he was one of the more frustrating people on this list. But Evan Ingram has to get a little bit of extra love just because the tight end position was so bad and he was getting 16 targets some games. And that's absolutely amazing because not even Kelsey was doing that most of the time.
So watching the Titans-Jags game, one of the most painful things the commentator never should have said was he said he asked the head coach if they're going to take Evan Ingram and move him to the wide receiver position because he basically is a wide receiver. And he said on live TV that the head coach told him, no, because if I move him to wide receiver, I have to pay him wide receiver money. I like his skill set of only having to pay him tight end money. Why would you say that on TV? Why? Don't, it's true. We all know it's true, but like, dude, I mean, this goes back to when Le'Veon Bell was trying to be like, I need to be paid for running back and receiver money. Like, the position thing definitely is there, and you can make the arguments, but like, don't say that the head coach flat out said that on TV. That looks so crappy as a player. I wouldn't want to go play for the Jags now if I think they're going to manipulate to try to not have to pay me.
Do you remember back to a couple of years ago when the NFLPA was like literally warning people to not go to the Jags because their front office was doing shady stuff and whatever? I'm imagining this happening again after that. But he would have gotten so many more fans if he said, no, I'm not going to move Evan Ingram to wide receiver because we need him at tight end in fantasy. Like, that's where I was hoping you were going with it because I didn't want it to be the bad one that you said.
You know me. Hot takes guy, just bringing the negativity.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting because he signed a 1-year, $10 million deal, so he's a free agent. So we'll see if they bring him back and what that looks like.
Yeah, after those comments, I'd have to be like, wide receiver money, please. But enough digressing. And the winner of waiver wire ad of the year is Justin Fields. It's quarterback Justin Fields. Look, Fields, it's not even because he I don't know. He wasn't great all season long, but once you picked him up, he suddenly became a fantasy winner for you. Like, I'm in a league where somebody was like, I have Kyler Murray. I'm just going to trade him. He means nothing to me. I got Justin Fields now. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to think, especially if you look at preseason. If you look at how the season started, Fields still wasn't putting things through the air as much as we'd like to see from him, but he was so dynamic with his legs. I mean, it was like when Lamar was in his rookie season. Whoever picked up Lamar that season, you won. You won your league. It was that simple. Or his sophomore season, not his rookie season, I should say.
Yeah. He had a stretch of 6 games where he scored at least 1 rushing touchdown in each of them, and his lowest score in that stretch was 20. He had 2 games over 39. Absolutely insane. And that's heading from week 7 to week 13. They had a week 14 bye. He got people into the fantasy playoffs. He probably got people to the second round with his 23 points in week 15. Like, it wasn't the best ending, but it was also in a situation where Chicago was 100% tanking. Like, you could say that for a fact. And they ended up with the first overall pick. But
Called that.
it was a great ride for Justin Fields there for a while.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next award, which is, I'm sorry, getting word from the studio that we have a surprise award to announce. Unscripted, here we go. The Fantasy Roller Coaster Award goes to Cam Akers. Cam Akers, congratulations for being eligible for all 3 of our first 3 categories. He was our biggest disappointment in the beginning of the year, which caused him to get dropped. When he got picked up, he became the biggest surprise of the year in the second half because he was written off by the team and then suddenly became great. And because he was picked up by teams, he became one of the waiver wire ads of the year. So Fantasy Roller Coaster Award, congratulations, Cam Akers.
Yay, Cam Akers.
He honestly wasn't super far off from getting a nomination for our next award either, which is Fantasy Playoff Hero. Tyler, take it away.
Spoiler. All right. The Fantasy Playoff Hero Award and the nominees are Christian McCaffrey, 63.9 points. Jerick McKinnon, 61.6 points. George Kittle, 60.6 points. And Mike Evans, 43.7 points. All of those are, 43.7 points in week 17. The other 3 are how many points they got in the entire playoffs. Those are our 4. The first one I want to talk about is George Kittle. Because George Kittle is a little extra sweet. Now, I know Jerick McKinnon was a waiver wire pickup. You could have thrown him in there in the waiver wire ads of the year as a potential there too, but George Kittle, I mean, we drafted him high. He was injured. We stashed him. He was out a little longer than we expected. And when he came back, he wasn't exactly who we thought he was. So the fact that, you were still able to make the playoffs, even with George Kittle not performing up to the level that he was supposed to be, and then he goes and ends up winning people their fantasy championships or just at least winning them their fantasy playoff games, it makes it a little extra sweet because you waited on him for so long. Plus, 60.6 points in the playoffs. We talked about it how many times? I mean, you can have big points from a running back. You can have big points from a receiver, but from a tight end, nobody else is getting those points. That gives you an automatic edge over whoever you're playing unless they have Kelsey. So that's why I want to talk about George Kittle. I think it was amazing.
Before I talk about the guy, I want to mention, just to let our listeners know, when you calculated the points, was that week 15, 16, and 17, or did you include week 18?
15, 16, 17.
Awesome. Perfect.
So, for example, the Mike Evans 43.7, that was under the assumption that he dropped that for you in a championship game, which is why I think Mike Evans had to go on there. He was number 1 in scoring out of every player in the championship round, and number 2 was Tom Brady, which is why I was mentioning earlier, I hope you played Tom Brady in week 17, because if you had that combo especially, you most likely won regardless of what happened in your fantasy championship.
Shout out to DJ Moore for beating me in 2 different playoff games after doing nothing all year. So thanks a lot, DJ Moore.
Awesome. I just want to throw out one more name. He's actually not a guy that we nominated, but we talked about him a little bit earlier. He was nominated, was Devonta Smith. Looking back on it, he had 15 or more points in each game of the fantasy playoffs, had just under 60 points total, still put up 10 points if you count week 18, had 14 and 8 weeks prior to the playoffs. So just a guy that came on strong right at the end. And 2 of those games were with Gardner Minshew, so not even Jalen Hurts. So a guy that you probably debated because of the injury, but stayed consistent. But I think it's now time that, Snyder, you announce the winner.
All right, let me get out this blank card again because I need a
Oh, please.
All right. And the Fantasy Playoff Hero Award goes to... It's George Kittle. It's the best George I know. That's what it is. George Kittle, congratulations on Fantasy Playoff Hero.
Congrats. The best George I know.
A little bit. Sorry. Yep. That's it. I mean, I can't match up to George Kittle. I can't even complain about that. that comparison, but especially at a position that nobody can get points at. I'd be lucky to put up 0.2 as a tight end in fantasy. George Kittle putting up 20 a week in the fantasy playoffs.
Dude, I got Tyler Lockett, Tyler Algier, I got Tyler Boyd. Like, there's so many good Tylers. I have no chance, so you're good.
I got George Kittle and George Pickens. I'm coming on strong with George Pickens the next few years.
George
but you got
Fant?
so many Tylers. Offensive linemen don't score fantasy points, unfortunately, unless we want to give some points for pancakes.
Do I not have a good fantasy? Like, do I not have a good NFL player? Like, am I going to be sad about it now?
I mean,
Is it Cody Hollister?
it is
Forever
Cody
21?
Hollister. He's terrible.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Cody
saying.
Abercrombie and Finch.
George, I mean, you're also going against former defensive end for the Chiefs, George Karlaftis. So, I mean, that's pretty tough. Yeah, I don't really know if, like, I mean,
Announce the next award while I search this because I'm about to be distraught.
I'm sorry, Cody. I don't know if there is one.
There's Cody Markey. Like,
He's good at
Oh,
hitting up
man.
runs. Congratulations, Cody.
Cody is not a name meant for football. I am sorry. So the next award and the final award is the Fantasy MVP Award. We'll do it without Cody. Clearly, he's not good enough for football anyway, so we're just going to leave him out. So the Fantasy MVP Award, let's just go ahead and jump right into our nominees. Our nominees are Patrick Mahomes, Austin Eckler, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, and Taysom Hill. All right, there's your Fantasy MVP Awards. There's your nominees.
Taysom Hill is not a real nominee.
No.
That was
Sorry. Evan McPherson.
still not a real nominee. It is worth noting that all four of these guys did finish number one at their position. Shout out to my Justin Jefferson crew that stuck with me when I said he was going to be wide receiver one. And I was like, no, Cooper Kupp. Yeah, Cooper Kupp got injured, and Justin Jefferson still did that thing. But according to Field Yates, he put out a cool, interesting stat on Twitter, giving us the point differential between the number one and the number two guy. So Patrick Mahomes sits at 21.88 points. And I'm sorry, don't know if this is half point PPR or full point PPR. He did not specify. So Christian McCaffrey was second behind Austin Eckler at 16.34. Justin Jefferson beat out Tyreek Hill by 21.46. And then Travis Kelce beat out Mark Andrews at 100.9. Yes, 100-point difference between tight end 1 and tight end 2.
Yeah, that's a little crazy. I mean, honestly, let's not even leave it up for discussion. Let's go ahead and jump to the cards here, guys. And your Fantasy MVP award goes to, it's shocking. It's shocking. I can't believe this. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. It's Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce wins
with
Fantasy
the upset
MVP.
of the century.
The card
Let's
has
go.
something on it.
Yeah, I told you it did. It's magic.
It's magic. Never mind. I'm not going to go in that far. I'm sorry. Yeah, so Travis Kelce definitely deserves it. And I think there'll be a lot of debate this offseason on how high do you take Travis Kelce next year in redrafts. And do you make a big push for him if you're a dynasty team, a piece or two away? What's it going to take to get him? But I think that's conversation for the offseason. And this is random, but it involves the Chiefs, and the Chiefs signed John Ross. So I just want to throw that out there since we're talking about the Chiefs, and they're just adding speed on speed on speed. So John Ross, I believe, is to the practice squad, but he is going to be a Kansas City Chief. Chiefs Bengals.
I have John Ross
Let's
in
have that fun.
every Madden league. I'm just saying. I sign him immediately as soon as I take over a Madden league. Guys, I'm going to throw out a random question here just to put you guys on the spot because I love watching you scramble and not know. And
I'll
Cody,
answer next week.
You cannot answer next week. All right. One random shout out, doesn't have to be like a snub or anything like that. Random shout out to any player not mentioned today in an award. I'll start it off to give you a little bit of time. Tony Pollard. This dude finishes running back 7 Even though he's a backup running back to Ezekiel Elliott, and Zeke played pretty much the whole year. The dude was drafted in mid to late rounds. I mean, we still expected Pollard to be the more talented running back, or maybe the more explosive running back. But either way, shout out to Tony Pollard. That's my guy that I want to give an announcement to. Whenever you guys get one, random player that you just want to give a shout out to, not mentioned today.
Okay, I'll go out there and throw out Nick Chubb. Because he's somebody that was slipping down a lot of draft boards because of the uncertainty in, Cleveland, and we didn't know what I was going to do the first half with the quarterback situation, and were they going to go away from the run when Deshaun Watson came in. And he still finished as a top 20 player and running back 6. So, I mean, he proved that he still should be a first-round pick next year. We'll see how he ends up falling on our way too early rankings and beyond. But, yeah, shout out to Nick Chubb.
All right, well, I kind of feel like a jerk because I'm going to take this in a different direction and go with Deontay Johnson. More leaning towards the disappointment, but I do want to give him a shout out to becoming the player the most in NFL history is the player with the most catches in a single season without scoring a touchdown, pulling in 86 catches, no touchdown. Good news is he's still a guy that you might want to look at next year, another year, Kenny Pickett, a guy that was still involved, and hopefully that touchdowns go back more towards the mean and he finds the end zone in 2023.
Maybe he'll be like Miles Sanders this year, where he went from 0 to probably scoring more than he should have. And if that's the case, could be the biggest sleeper of the draft next year.
Maybe. Could be.
All right. I think that wraps up our end of year awards episode. So thank you guys for listening in one more time to the Couch GMs podcast. Make sure you get involved. Make sure you tell us who you think you would have put as our fantasy MVP. Was there somebody we forgot to mention that should have been fantasy playoff hero? Whatever it is, let us know on social media who you would have had winning these awards. And we're going to be back here later this week to break down the first round of the playoffs and start looking at our fantasy playoff challenge lineups. Make sure you check us out later in the week. For Tyler Snyder and Cody Roadcap, I'm George Kerth, and we will see you on Friday.
Boom. It's Travis Kelce. Fantasy MVP.